Hey, what's up, everybody? No suits allowed. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Martin Montana, Eric Grinberg. Our guest today, Chris Cocores, President and CEO of U Financial Group. Chris, how you doing, man?
Good, what's shaking, guys?
We're here in this beautiful studio.
New studio. Finally done after some hard labor
Finally
by
done.
our,
There's a number of cameras. You're probably getting a waist up shot. We are fully dressed, wearing pants, if anybody's wondering. But we're excited, man. We're excited to have you. And I've got so many questions about what you've built, but let's start with the general idea of you starting your firm in the central Pennsylvania area and really growing way beyond that in terms of your footprint. Tell us a little bit about that. So first of all, how many advisors do you have now? How many offices, states? Can you talk a little bit about where you're at today? And then we're going to rewind that and talk about your mindset build and all that.
Sure. I think as of this morning, we're at about 100 and between 120 and 130 advisors. We are in 12 or 13 states. It's changed a lot in the last 6 months, so it's hard to specifically keep it, track of all of them, all the states. And your words were very humbling and kind. I did not start the organization. It was started by an OG legend, this guy by the name of Gary Winkin, who, when Mass Mutual and Connecticut Mutual merged, he was granted the rights for kind of central Pennsylvania and eastern Pennsylvania for those two organizations, and built an awesome kind of broker dealer leading, with financial planning as the concept to lead, to go to clients with, go to market with. And he was succeeded by a gentleman by the name of Matt Doby, one of my mentors, awesome leader. He was transformational in my career. And I succeeded Matt when that retired in 2018. And so, and we've just been super lucky. And, it's very much in our organization, much more about those that we serve. I work for the advisors. We work for 130 advisors. It's not the other way around here. And I think that kind of motto and mentality has been instrumental in our ability to really grow and scale and go from state to state and market to market, because I think our message, mission, vision, and values really resonate with the entrepreneurial thinking financial advisor who wants a lot of custom support independence. And that's kind of been our fastball. And what I typically tell people in the first meeting, if they're an EXP, that, listen, we have our type that tends to really thrive here, who our systems and processes and people and thought process can really help, is that they are an entrepreneur that happens to be an advisor. And a lot of our people and thinking just happen to funnel down that channel and respond in working for advisors who think that way really well.
Yep. I love that. So how big was the organization in 2018?
Good question. I think we were at like 75 or 78 advisors.
Yeah.
2018. We were doing about 3 million of insurance commission, about 18 million of GEC. So we're very humbled to, suggest some of our results this year with our proprietary carrier. This year, I think we'll do depends on how the year wraps up, but we usually do 30 or 40% of our business the last month or two of the year. We'll do between 9 and 11 million of commission with the proprietary distributor we work with. And we'll probably do 5 million of GDC this year. So,
Wow. That's awesome.
And the market's helped too. And our people have helped and grown and scaled, but we've been really fortunate in that sense. Yeah.
So take us and congratulations on that success, man. That's fantastic. So take us back to 2018, right? You're, like you said, you were part of the organization, but now call it yours, right? You're steering the ship. What was your mindset to start creating that growth, that expansion, not only, through geography in different states and sites and whatnot, but obviously the business grew exponentially. So tell us about that. Like, what was your thought process? It's day one, you got the new business card, right? Like,
Yeah.
What's your mentality? What's your vision? And how did you start executing on it?
It's a great question, Mark. I think at least for me, one of the mentors in my life, Matt Doby, my predecessor, was really great at letting me kind of be me and supporting, my thought process and my vision. And so as a sales manager, I was fortunate enough to open 3 or 4 new branches. So that was not a foreign, uncomfortable thing for me to do as a business person in this line of business. So they were much more regional. So we opened one maybe 45 minutes west of our core, and then one maybe an hour north, and then one in Center City, Philly. There might have been 1 or 2 others, but so long ago at this point. Anyway, so at least 3 that I can point to that gave me the experience and kind of the courage to do that move versus just recruit into spaces that were already there. Uh, Again, super fortunate to have even been able to cross that bridge with a supportive mentor that was willing to put his checkbook up and say, "Hey, I'll take a risk on you, kid," so that was great. And then, the other person I'd point to that was transformational in my thinking was a gentleman named John Vaccaro, who was the leader of, or still is, a co-leader and retiring, I believe, next year of Mass Mutual Field. And John said to me one thing in my GA interview that I'll always remember. He said, "Hey, Coco, Dobie's been a great GA, my predecessor. Great GA. Served his people, you know, um, helped us grow, help open some new offices, open some new markets. Um, Now my charge to you is grow the thing." And so I took that very seriously, and I am a tremendously loyal person. I do everything in my power to honor the commitments that I make and to validate promises that I give my business partners. And I took that charge from John very, very seriously. And so going back to the office, driving the 6 hours from Massachusetts back to PA, my car thinking like, okay, Mechanicsburg is a small town. I mean, if you've ever been here,
I don't think I have.
yeah,
I said, I don't think I have.
yeah. Well, I love it here, but a lot of people that come here and visit say that you wouldn't have missed much. But it's a great place for his family to live on a farm. It's awesome. Anyway, ADD sets in. But I realized very quickly that we had a couple really valuable assets. I mean, the culture that I was asked to continue to deepen in our organization is remarkably special. I mean, the 10-year advisor that I get to work for every day is, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It's unbelievable. Some remarkable um, forces of personality, a really positive way to encourage the right things. And here it's definitely never been all about how much an advisor can make. It's definitely much more been a focus on, what impact they can make in their family, their community, their church, their local athletic program, whatever it is. And we're going to show you how to build a badass business while you're doing that. And that often made a really deep mark on me. And I think that culture that I was asked to continue to perpetuate and develop and grow and deepen has done that. And that's not me. That's the folks at our organization that go out of their way to choose to welcome the new people that want to hang their cleats up here, right?
Yeah.
So I'll give you a great quick example that we had a kickoff meeting in Philly. I want to say middle of August, end of August. We had a new group join us from Tennessee. Some really outstanding young advisors with really big vision, really big dreams, and tons of talent to back it up. Anyway, they work in a lot of the pro athlete space. Great people. And we have an advisor up in the Philadelphia area who does a lot of work with professional athletes and some administrative folks in the major sports leagues. And, I know you guys have probably spent some time in Philly, Geno's and Pat's, right? So we're wrapping up and the guys from Tennessee are like, "Hey, y'all, like we need some cheesesteaks. We're in Philip, got Pratt." So like 2 of the advisors that have no reason to help these new guys, but way out of their way at 12:30, be like, "All right, let's go to Geno's. I'll show you how to order." And it's just like, I have goosebumps talking about it. I mean, the fact that people continue to choose to plow into the culture is, I think, our most special asset as an organization because it changes the life and it changes the way advisors think, right? They're not on an island. One of the things we say in a conversation with the XP that's looking to potentially, allow us to work for them is that when they are exploring, here's 10 cell phone numbers from advisors that have been with us. Feel free to call them. And I don't pre-prompt them. I don't script the conversation. I want them to be real and vulnerable with each other.
You don't throw your voice and answer the call as a pretend advisor or anything like that.
It's creative. No. But no, I've just been really lucky.
Yeah. Well, actually, let me ask you on that, Chris. So I heard you say like, that culture piece of, yes, of course, it's about money and doing well financially for the advisors and all that, but you're sort of leading with the idea of helping others and being a part of, your organization, your culture, and all that. So I'm imagining you've had to turn some people away, or maybe even move on from some people that really weren't that way or weren't quite the fit. Um, how'd you come to grips with that? Because, at the end of the day, you are running a P&L and a business. So dollars are dollars, but it seems to me like from the outside, you're pretty firm in what you're doing. So are there some examples of advisors that maybe had pretty good or great businesses and you're like, love that, but you're just not going to be a fit here?
So it's a great question. There are a couple examples that come to mind where, again, let's say we connect, advisor who's looking to, find their new home with our reps, right?
Yep.
One of the things that I have learned to listen to very carefully is the feedback from those reps, our reps that talk to the new potential advisor. And if I get two phone calls that are like, "Hey man, what are you thinking?" I don't know if this one fits. I don't know if they're going to be a good vibe for the culture. That's a really good sign and a really good signal. And of course, as a business person, I've in my very, hungry years as a GA when you're starting out, have chosen business over culture, and 1,000 times out of 1,000, it's blown up in a negative way, right? So, I think that's maturity with any human being on earth as they go through more experiences and they get more kind of life data to point to arrive at effective conclusions. That's certainly been advantageous for me. So I'm starting to trust instinct in that space and feedback from our current folks that I work for, much more than any, data set or production sheet that we're going to see, because those relationships mean a lot. And honoring the culture that people signed up for means even more to me. I think this thing, if I'm fortunate enough to lead this organization for the foreseeable future. And one day my successor, who at least, I have kind of picked out today, is able to grow it. Man, that would be the most tremendous blessing in my professional life to look back and be able to point to it and say like, yeah, I'm so happy I was able to contribute and work there for, a period of time. The thing is special. I'm not, the culture, the people here, how they plow into it is special. I'm just the guy that, somebody needed to make the final decisions for a while. So it's remarkably humbling and probably the most fun, I could have ever imagined. Uh, I've been lucky enough to kind of trip into in life. It's very special.
I was lucky enough to get to spend some time with you and your crew up in Nashville and play some golf for a couple days. And I think one of the things that amazed me the most was a lot of guys in your position tend to kind of pull themselves away from that family culture and being intimately part of the culture, right? They try to kind of keep that distance, whether for HR reasons or just out of pure ego. What about your culture and about you allowed you to kind of really dive in and feel like you're just one of the guys and you're just one of the group and the ability to really connect with those people on an intimate level and not have the kind of the fright that some of the leaders have about being part of the just part of the family.
I think that a bunch of ideas kind of come to mind in response to the question. One is I feel so remarkably duty bound because it started here. I feel like I always respected leaders that led from the front. Just resonated with me. I promised myself and my bride that when we accepted this responsibility, like, hey, I'm gonna go all in, but to try my guts out, and we'll see what happens, right? So that's a big deal to us. And then I think the other special part of honoring the culture that's here and continuing to plow into it and develop it is that my wife and I idolized these people when I was a new advisor, right? When you're young, competitive. Now we're lucky enough to be able to give awards to these people at banquets and functions and whatever and work for them every day. And so it's just it's not an option, in my mind's eye. And I'd say even further, the other thing, thank God we were fortunate enough to, kind of have the wisdom to do looking back is when we were really in our fast growth curve, 2018 and 2020, from a headcount perspective, you know, my wife and I were talking, it's like, okay, how do we continue and deepen the intimacy amongst our people that we get to work for at scale, right? Because we had opened 1 or 2 out-of-state offices, Central Florida, North Florida, a couple others at that point, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. So, we said we got to turn it into a science. We can't leave this to accident. And so we brought in somebody as a full-time employee who their job previously was to run these global educational events and coordinate participants from 40 countries to go to Barcelona for some kind of academic thing. I figured, hey, if she can do that, she's probably going to be able to handle to make sure, phone calls are scheduled and made to advisors. We're taking, extra time to verify that advisors are getting value from the suite of services that the firm provides, that they're making sure they're spending time together out of the office, spending time with us outside of the office, spending time with each other outside the office that we coordinate and pay for, right? Because I do think that while great culture is a squishy thing to manage, you can certainly do your best to manage it and put an investment behind making sure that it's managed.
That's awesome. I think part of one of your biggest assets is your empathetic nature, right? And so how do you think your empathy has transformed the culture and helped in the recruiting process ultimately versus the traditional push pull high pressure environments that recruiters tend to put people inside of?
That's a great question. I think that a very kind compliment. Thank you. I appreciate it. Um, I was I won the parent lottery. Was raised by 2 teachers in blue collar part of Connecticut, southeastern towards Rhode Island, and I think the values that you get instilled with as a kid are tremendously impactful, especially as you get into leadership and you're on a stage, you're communicate with people and responsible for something much larger than yourself. Um, you know, my parents were great. They let me learn to be me early in life. And they love the crap out of my sister and I, and they were the biggest blessing, you could ever imagine. And so I just kind of, it is who my parents helped me become and who my wife certainly nurtured. And, I think as we all mature in age, your perspective on life and how you want to be treated is so impactful in the way you make decisions. And, while we're in business, making, a profit in a business is important. It's not a nonprofit. But I think that there is a rather non-blurry line around how we make decisions financially, and we tend to operate when it comes to finances with the golden rule in mind. Treat others how you want to be treated. Be transparent. Be as honest as humanly possible. And be empathetic, because if I were in their shoes, that's how I want to be treated too. If I had an issue or a challenge or a question or whatever. And I think that resonates. And, when you give grace, I think you tend to get more grace back. And so that's just been what we've done and kind of how we've learned.
You're one of the better recruiters I know, and that says a lot because I think I'm probably the best.
He had to slide it in.
Had to throw it in there.
waiting for it.
Well, yeah, on our first phone call, I tried to recruit you after you told me your life story.
Almost worked.
Philadelphia.
Love Philadelphia as I've gotten to know it. Tell me this. You, like me, don't do any outbound recruiting calls. Everything comes to you. Tell me how that's happened. You said you haven't made one in 4 years?
That's somewhat accurate. Yeah. Listen, again, I'm remarkably humbled by that statistic. I think that here's what people have told me and what I've noticed. That's all I can represent. I go the science of the math behind it. I think that producers that are experienced producers that leave a company, what I've learned is they tend to have just been misled, built some mistrust. Somebody's pulled the rug out from under them that is a very controllable thing. Sometimes companies change grids or raise expenses or change rules or whatever. And those are uncontrollables, right? So nobody can control those. And I think mature adults in the business understand
Yep.
businesses change and you always kind of have to grow, right? Or else you're going backwards. So I think on the controllable stuff, right? A lot of producers that are experienced have communicated to myself and the firm that, that's where it really starts to hurt and where they're like, man, if they're not going to go out of their way to try to take care of us, with things that they can control. And then we have these variables that they can't control. Like, what am I doing here? So
Now,
um, I think that we haven't had to make a ton of outbound, phone calls on the basis that we operate with the golden rule first in mind, right? You treat others how we want to be treated, honest, transparent, candid, spirit of love. Love's our first core value as an organization. Anyway, I think that when you sign up to work for an EXP and you do what you tell them you're going to do, and you consistently show up to make their business life and their personal life better or more at peace, you try to give them time back, try to be empathetic and think about what it's like to live in their shoes. Um, that method of thinking has benefited us tremendously in that when an advisor receives a call from another advisor that they maybe used to work with, they knew from a firm event or whatever it might be, first reaction is, man, you should talk to our people.
Yeah.
I'm really happy here. And listen, there are uncontrollable things that no one can change. And sometimes we like, sometimes we don't like. But everything that's controllable, they have my 6. And they did everything they said they're going to do, plus, 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 right? And I think that that's resonated with a lot of experienced producers in the industry. And we have a fit. And here's the kind of advisor that really blossoms in our world. If it's not you, that's okay. I'm happy to introduce you to somebody else or another firm in our system, or Eric and his crew or whatever. But I think the more serious you get about the value stack that you provide for an advisor and the culture you want to surround them with and the way that they're treated, I think the story kind of has built itself, and we've been really lucky. And again, it's not me; it's everybody around me, right? Like I can pay a bill or help somebody out or whatever, but I think the people that fulfill the promises, those on my team are the ones that are really moving the needle. And I'm, again, forever grateful for those around me that are helping the work, go the way it's gone.
well, Chris, yeah, let me just say your arrogance is overwhelming. You're, yeah, I mean, what's awesome about honestly this conversation is like you're like literally, people say servitude, and I mean that you are like, I can see why your culture is what you're describing. I mean, literally just everything you're describing is, it's never about you. You're almost the anti, like, that called stereotypical, like ego first leader type person. So let me ask you this. If imagine someone's watching this podcast and they're going to get dropped in to lead an organization, right? Maybe they didn't grow up in that organization. I'm thinking, more of an advice situation. If they were going to drop you and you're starting over and you're going to take over and do kind of what you did, but you're doing it somewhere else. It's new. You don't know the players. What would be the first couple pieces of advice you'd give that person?
That's a big question. Well, that's a really good one. I think transparency is tremendously important in business. I think communication is, if not as important, maybe 1A or right under it. I think the more people understand about what's going on between your ears, the more they can support and encourage or spiritedly disagree or whatever, but at least where everybody stands. Communication is so important. I think an impactful team around you that is chosen with forethought,
Yep.
is tremendously impactful. And then I think authenticity from a leadership perspective is one of the most undersung traits in the business community today, especially when the numbers get big.
Yeah.
Every time I look at a humongous organization, whether it's in our line of work or not, it feels like the higher up the ladder you go, the less authentic you're allowed to be. I don't think that's real life, or at least it doesn't speak to me.
Totally agree.
Speak to somebody that's highly in corporate, in that sense, but it wouldn't resonate with me. And I think, I'm like I forget if I'm a late millennial or early. I was born in,
We'll pull up the chart. We have the chart in the
Yeah.
back. We'll get it. Yeah.
I was born in the early 80s. And, I think that the invention of the internet allowed us to see and understand more information than we could have ever imagined when I was like 10 or 12-year-old, whatever. Wow. When Al Gore invented it. And, and, you know, social media today, Twitter, X, whatever, you can AI, you can find any information you want. So like, why hide? Right? Be authentic, be transparent, be who you are, make values-based decisions, go to bed and wake up and do it all over again. I think that's how you build a great life in this business. Um, and again, I think I've been fortunate to have a handful of wonderful mentors and coaches, Ben Newman, Jordan Montgomery. I was with Josh Contact yesterday. My peers, my study group, I have some rock star people that I'm allowed to learn from. And I think I'm an okay visionary. There are definitely better in visionary space. I think I'm an okay pragmatic thinker. There are definitely more systematic, process-oriented thinkers in the business. But being able to learn from those people and kind of borrow what feels right and natural and normal to you has been certainly a big advantage for us. Yeah, it's been lucky, but awesome.
Well, listen, man, we're up against time, but one, thank you for doing this.
Thanks.
It's been amazing, Chris, to have you on.
Thank you.
You're really gonna. I'm going to tell you right now, you're really gonna stand out because we didn't even circle back to it, but I heard you say your number one piece of your value prop. You said the word love. I don't know if that's come out yet,
Hasn't come.
but it's actually not, because I don't even know if has anyone said that.
Nobody's said that, and it seems so simple that I think it's I don't understand how anybody hasn't thought of it. So
It's huge.
awesome.
And you're not. I mean, to your point, I know you're saying it's not because there's no doubt in our minds, and I'm sure people watching this, that you're saying it authentically. I mean, it's just you. I mean, you're naturally, like, again, humble and looking to serve and looking to, you're not worried about good or bad. Like, you want real-time feedback from everybody you're working with. And I'm going to guess it's a big part of why you've been so successful, in addition to all these other great things you've done. So kudos to you. Phenomenal growth story. I'm really happy. I mean, I know this is just the beginning, right? Like, you're certainly not done, but I think people could take away a lot from, your attitude and developing culture and just some of these amazing things that, you've put out here today. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I know I've learned a ton from you. I appreciate you as a friend, and excited to have you back on here because we didn't get to half of the fun stuff. So excited for the fun stuff next time.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Thank you
Yeah,
for the
no,
opportunity, guys.
Thanks, Coco.
Thanks, bud.
All right, guys, have a good one.
You too.
See ya. Bye-bye.